When you stop contacting a woman, everything in the dynamic changes, not because of the silence itself, but because of the energy behind it. Most men think that cutting communication is just about not texting, not calling, not chasing. But in reality, the shift that happens during silence is much deeper. It's psychological, emotional, and primal. You see, when a woman feels your absence for the first time, her mind doesn't immediately miss you. It analyzes you. She starts wondering what happened, not because she's hurt, but because her sense of control is interrupted. Women are used to being the emotional center of the connection. They're used to your attention being a given, something steady, predictable, almost guaranteed. When you suddenly remove that consistency, her subconscious begins to panic. At first, she'll rationalize it. She'll tell herself you're busy, distracted, or even playing games. But deep down, something starts to shift. Every day that passes without your message challenges her perception of power, because in her mind, she wasn't supposed to be the one wondering. You were. And now she's faced with a version of you that doesn't orbit her anymore. A version that seems to have stepped into peace. That's when curiosity begins to grow. She starts revisiting old conversations, rereading messages, and replaying your tone in her head. She compares your calm silence to the noise of everyone else in her life, and the more she tries to understand why you disappeared, the more she feels the pull, not toward your presence, but toward the mystery you've created. Because here's the truth: silence is not absence. It's a mirror. It reflects everything she once overlooked, the attention she took for granted, the effort she dismissed, the comfort she assumed would always be there. And when you stop contacting her, you're not punishing her. You're forcing her to confront the emotional consequences of losing access to your energy. You're showing her without words that your attention was never a guarantee. It was a privilege. That's why women react so strongly to distance. The masculine stillness that once seemed boring suddenly becomes magnetic. The quiet confidence that once blended into the background now stands out. She starts to see what she didn't before, that your calm wasn't weakness, it was control. Eventually she'll test the silence. Maybe she'll post something to get your reaction. Maybe she'll send a small message just to check if she still matters. But it's not affection driving her, it's curiosity. She wants to know if your piece is real or performative. And that's where the real power begins. Because if your silence isn't an act, if it's truly peace, that's when her attraction doesn't just return, it deepens. Because what she feels isn't just distance anymore, it's the weight of losing a man she can no longer control. Before we start, a quick reminder: my complete Stoic couple course is now live at thestoichoop.podia.com. If you've been learning from these videos, that's just the surface. Inside the course, we go deeper, mastering attraction, understanding female psychology, and rebuilding your mindset from the inside out. Join once, and you're in for life with lifetime access to all future courses, books, and new lessons. Plus, you'll be part of our private Stoic community, a brotherhood where men like you grow together in discipline, power, and self-control. It's available in English and Spanish, and you can enroll instantly at thestoiccouple.podia.com or click the link below. Enroll once, grow forever. Let's begin. Grow. Section number 1, the psychology of silence. What her mind does when you go quiet. When you stop contacting a woman, the first thing that happens isn't heartbreak. It's confusion. You've interrupted a rhythm that she had grown comfortable with. A pattern of attention that subconsciously reaffirmed her sense of influence over you, your messages, your check-ins, your availability. All of that built a predictable emotional ecosystem where she knew her power. When that suddenly vanishes, her mind begins to search for equilibrium. At first, she won't admit it. She might tell herself she's relieved or that she needed space. But the truth is, women don't miss men immediately. They miss the feeling they used to get from your attention. Every time your name popped up on her phone, she felt desired, admired, secure in the knowledge that someone was emotionally invested in her. When that constant validation disappears, a subtle void begins to form. It doesn't always feel like longing. It feels like imbalance. Human psychology operates on familiarity. Whatever we experience consistently becomes our emotional baseline. For her, your presence, your energy was part of that baseline. So when you suddenly step back, her mind enters what psychologists call a cognitive dissonance loop. It's the discomfort that arises when reality no longer matches expectation. She begins to ask herself silent questions. Did he lose interest? Did I say something wrong? Did he move on? Those questions aren't random. They're the early signs of emotional re-engagement. Your silence forces her mind to create its own answers. And because women are intuitive and emotionally analytical, she won't rest until she understands your distance. That's when your power begins to grow. Because now you're not in her inbox, you're in her imagination. This is where silence becomes a psychological amplifier. The less she knows, the more she feels. The less you say, the more meaning she assigns. Every post, every glimpse of your calm energy becomes an unsolvable riddle. And the longer that mystery lasts, the stronger the emotional gravity becomes. But here's the critical part. Your silence only holds power when it's real. If you're sitting in silence while secretly waiting for her message, she'll feel that energy. Women can sense emotional attachment even through absence. True control comes when your silence isn't a tactic. It's a transformation. When you genuinely detach from her reaction, your energy changes. You stop vibrating at the frequency of need and start vibrating at the frequency of peace. That shift is what breaks her control, because she's no longer dealing with the man who once needed reassurance. She's facing a man who has found stability in solitude, and that kind of presence doesn't just confuse her, it attracts her on a level she can't logically explain. Silence, when rooted in confidence, isn't rejection, it's reflection. It forces her to see herself through your absence, and for the first time, she starts realizing the weight of what she lost. Section number 2, the emotional timeline, what she feels as the days pass without contact. The first few days after you stop contacting her feel like nothing. In her mind, it's business as usual. She might even feel a sense of victory, the belief that she's the one who's in control. She tells herself you'll eventually reach out again, that this is temporary, that you're just trying to get her attention. But beneath that surface level confidence, something subtle begins to shift. By day 3 or 4, she starts noticing the silence. Not just the lack of texts, but the absence of your energy. You are part of her emotional environment, a familiar vibration in her day. And suddenly, that frequency is gone. She scrolls through her messages, not to reply, but to relive. She starts replaying moments that once felt ordinary, searching for signs she may have missed. That's the first stage, curiosity. It's the quiet realization that maybe she misread the situation. By the end of the first week, curiosity begins to turn into discomfort. You're still silent, no post directed at her, no reaction to her stories, no small hints that you're waiting. The stillness begins to bother her, because what confuses a woman isn't your absence, it's your indifference. The man who once made her feel wanted now feels unreachable. And that's when she starts to feel something she hasn't in a while. Doubt. Doubt is the seed of attraction reborn. It makes her wonder if she misjudged your value. It makes her ask herself if you finally moved on. And that uncertainty doesn't fade, it grows. By week 2, her curiosity becomes restlessness. She starts thinking about you in moments she didn't expect. At night, in silence, when her phone lights up and it's not you, the mind begins to crave what it can't predict. By week 3, her ego begins to fight back. She'll post something to provoke a reaction, maybe a quote, a selfie, a small attempt to test your composure. It's not affection, it's control. She's trying to confirm that she still has emotional power. But when you stay silent, truly silent, without bitterness or need, something inside her starts to collapse. And this is where the real magic happens, because the silence that once made her feel powerful now makes her feel powerless. She realizes that your absence wasn't weakness, it was strength. She starts to feel what you once felt, the uncertainty, the wondering, the quiet pull. By the time a month passes, you're no longer just a memory. You're a presence she can't shake. Every man who talks too much reminds her of how rare your calm was. Every text from someone new feels flat compared to your silence, because what once felt like distance now feels like dominance, not aggressive, not loud, but peaceful and complete. That's when she starts to understand the truth, that you didn't vanish to hurt her, you evolved to heal yourself. And now she's not chasing the man who left, she's chasing the peace he found after leaving. Section number 3. When curiosity turns into craving, the moment she starts to miss you. There's a moment every woman reaches when your silence stops being confusing and starts being captivating. It doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually when her thoughts begin circling back to you at unexpected times. At first, it's subtle. You cross her mind in the middle of a conversation, or she catches herself comparing someone else's tone to yours. But over time, those small moments merge into one undeniable truth. She misses your presence, even if she doesn't understand why. This shift happens when she realizes that your silence isn't reactive. It's powerful. She expected you to fade away, to get frustrated, to reach out and break your own discipline. But instead, you became calm. And that calmness speaks louder than any message could. Because in her world, most men chase closure, validation, or revenge. You didn't. You just disappeared into growth. That difference doesn't just confuse her, it intrigues her. You see, craving isn't born out of absence, it's born out of emotional contrast. She starts to realize that while other men are loud, predictable, and needy, your silence feels like control. You're not posting out of spite, not playing games, not proving anything. You've become a mystery again, and mystery is the rarest form of attraction. As the days pass, her curiosity becomes emotional gravity. She starts asking herself questions she can't answer. Why did he stop caring? Why doesn't he miss me? Has he moved on? Those questions replay in her head because her pride won't allow her to ask them aloud. And the more she tries to suppress them, the stronger they become. That's how longing is created, not through communication, but through quiet contrast. Then comes the emotional turning point. She starts to romanticize you. Her mind begins rewriting the story, exaggerating the best parts, forgetting the reasons she pulled away. Every memory becomes tinted with nostalgia. Every silence feels heavier. She begins to crave your energy, not because she needs closure, but because she wants to feel that balance again. That's when her ego starts to crack. The same woman who once acted indifferent now feels a subtle ache when your name is mentioned. She might check your profile late at night, scroll through old messages, or send something small to test the waters. But make no mistake, that's not confidence. That's curiosity mixed with regret. And here's the paradox. The moment she tries to reach you again, she realizes she can't because you've changed. Your silence has reshaped your presence. You no longer speak the same emotional language she used to control. You've elevated to a frequency that's calm, selective, and self-assured. That's when craving becomes loss, not of the man she knew, but of the peace she once felt around him. She doesn't miss the relationship. She misses the emotional safety your silence now represents. Because once a man masters peace, even distance feels magnetic. Section number 4, the power of presence in absence. Why she feels you even when you're gone. It's strange how the human mind works. You can remove someone physically, delete the messages, stop the contact, and yet their energy still lingers. The truth is, presence isn't built through words or proximity. It's built through emotional impact. And when you've been deeply connected with a woman, your silence becomes more powerful than your voice ever was. When you stop contacting her, she may think you've disappeared, but energetically, you're still there. You exist in the gaps of her day, in the moments between tasks, in the songs that remind her of you, in the sudden quiet that used to be filled by your attention. That's because women don't miss what's gone. They miss what's felt. And the more balanced, composed, and grounded you were when you walked away, the more she feels that absence like gravity. Masculine presence leaves an emotional footprint. It's not about dominance or control. It's about stability. The calm man, the centered man, the man who speaks with purpose and listens with patience becomes unforgettable. When that kind of presence goes silent, it doesn't vanish, it echoes. It forces her to confront her own noise. Every conversation she has with others feels slightly more hollow. Every attempt to replace your energy feels slightly more forced. That's not nostalgia, that's contrast. Because in a world full of chaos, your calm became her equilibrium. And now, without it, everything feels slightly off balance. That's why women often come back after silence, not because they miss your body or your voice, but because they crave the peace you represented. The man who learns to be silent with strength, not spite, becomes unforgettable. You're not haunting her out of pride. You're resonating with her subconscious. She might not reach out right away, but she'll start doing small things to reconnect with your energy. Checking your social media, posting things that mirror your mindset, mentioning you indirectly. It's her way of saying, I can still feel you, even if I don't understand why. But this kind of presence only lasts if your silence is real. If your peace is performative, she'll sense it. If you're waiting for her reaction, she'll feel the tension. But if you've truly detached, if you've built a life filled with purpose, self-respect, and focus, she will feel that shift, even from miles away. That's what most men don't realize. Silence is not the absence of communication, it's the loudest message you'll ever send. It tells her that your world doesn't revolve around hers anymore. It shows her that your value isn't dependent on being chosen. It's defined by how well you choose yourself. And once she feels that, the weight of your peace, the absence of your need, she won't be able to unfeel it because you didn't just leave a space in her phone. You left a presence in her mind. Section number 5, her reaction phase, how she tests your silence and what it really means. When a woman realizes that your silence isn't temporary, she begins to test it. It's not malicious, it's instinctive. Her ego and emotions both want answers, but they can't agree on what those answers should be. One part of her wants to reach out and feel your presence again. The other part wants to prove that she's the one in control. And caught between both forces, she does what every human does when they lose certainty. She tests. The first test usually comes disguised as something innocent, a simple message, a random emoji, a comment on something unrelated. It looks casual, but it's not. It's emotional reconnaissance. She's trying to measure your temperature without revealing hers. She wants to know if you still care, if the silence has broken you, or if you've truly moved on. Your reaction in this phase determines everything. Most men fail here because they mistake the test for a sign of reconciliation. They rush to reply, thinking the silence worked, and in doing so, they confirm her power. The Stoic man does the opposite. He understands that silence only works when it remains consistent. So he doesn't rush. He doesn't ignore her out of spite, but he also doesn't reward her with instant validation. He responds with calm energy, measured, grounded, composed, because his silence was never about manipulation. It was about mastery. As her tests fail to shake you, her emotions intensify. What was once curiosity becomes frustration. She starts to feel something she hasn't felt before, emotional imbalance. And that's when she starts creating narratives to protect her ego. She might tell herself that you've changed, that you've become distant, that you're no longer the man she knew. But beneath those words lies an uncomfortable truth. She's realizing she no longer has emotional influence over you. This realization hits deeper than any argument or explanation ever could, because power isn't proven through confrontation. It's revealed through restraint. Your silence doesn't say, I don't care. It says, I'm at peace whether you're here or not. And that level of stability is what every feminine mind is subconsciously drawn to. Eventually, her tests evolve. She might start posting more, trying to catch your eye. She might talk about you indirectly, hoping it gets back to you. But no matter what she does, the core motivation remains the same. She wants to know if the bond she once controlled still exists. And the more she tries to provoke, the more she exposes her attachment. You don't need to block, chase, or engage in emotional games. You've already won the only battle that matters, the one between your ego and your peace. When your silence holds steady through her tests, she stops questioning your motives and starts questioning her choices. Because deep down she knows if she can't shake your calm, she's no longer in control of the story. Section number 6, the turning point. When she realizes you've outgrown the old dynamic, every woman eventually reaches a point where the silence stops being about you and starts being about her. It's the moment she realizes that the man she used to know is gone, not because he disappeared, but because he evolved. The version of you who needed her reassurance, her validation, or her attention no longer exists. And for the first time, she feels something she never expected to feel from you: distance wrapped in peace. This turning point doesn't happen in a dramatic moment. It sneaks up on her slowly through the quiet consistency of your new behavior. She sees that you're no longer reacting, no longer chasing, no longer explaining. The emotional rhythm that once defined your connection has vanished, replaced by something much more powerful: neutrality. And neutrality, when rooted in strength, is the most intimidating energy in the world. She begins to notice it in subtle ways. You reply slower, with shorter, calmer messages, not cold, but clear. You're no longer seeking connection. You're maintaining composure. You're not proving your worth. You're embodying it. Your words carry weight, not because you're trying to convince her of something, but because you no longer need her approval to validate who you are. That shift hits her deeper than any "I miss you" ever could, because she realizes that your silence wasn't punishment. It was preparation. You weren't waiting for her to change. You were changing yourself. And now the man who once revolved around her emotions moves like he's guided by something bigger: purpose. That realization triggers two emotions inside her: regret and respect. Regret because she now sees what she lost. Respect because she senses a strength she never noticed before. The same calm that once frustrated her now feels magnetic. The same distance that once made her feel powerful now makes her feel small. And here's the beauty of it: you didn't have to say a word. She's learning all of this from your energy, your discipline, and your peace. You've redefined the dynamic without confrontation, without begging, without explaining. You simply stopped feeding her emotional dependency and started feeding your own evolution. That's when she starts to see the truth. Your absence was never about ignoring her. It was about elevating you. You didn't stop caring. You stopped clinging. You didn't disappear to punish. You disappeared to rebuild. And now she's standing in the echo of your silence, realizing that the man she took for granted doesn't exist anymore. The version of you she once knew wouldn't have lasted this long without reaching out. But the man she's facing now, he's moved from reaction to mastery. That's when she finally understands what you knew all along: that no contact was never about separation. It was about evolution. And she's no longer the center of your world. Peace is. Section number 7, the final phase. When your silence turns into respect and power, eventually every woman reaches the realization that changes everything, that your silence was never about her. It wasn't a tactic, a punishment, or a test. It was evolution. It was you choosing your peace over her attention, and that awareness hits deeper than any confession or confrontation ever could. Because what she sees now isn't the boy who once needed her approval. It's the man who became whole without it. At first, she may still fight the urge to reach out, holding on to pride as her last defense. But internally, something shifts. The same silence that once felt frustrating now feels commanding. The same composure that once seemed cold now feels magnetic. She begins to associate your absence with stability, your restraint with power, your peace with presence. And that's the paradox. The quieter you became, the louder your energy grew. You see, women don't respect the man who gives everything away. They respect the man who knows when to walk away. Because detachment doesn't mean indifference. It means discipline. It means you're no longer moved by chaos, no longer shaken by inconsistency, no longer controlled by temporary emotions. You've learned to regulate what others lose themselves in, and that's what makes your silence unforgettable. In this final phase, she's not just missing your messages, she's missing your energy, the calm you carried, the structure you brought, the presence that made her feel safe, even when she couldn't admit it. You've become the contrast to everything she's surrounded by, a world full of noise, drama, and distraction. Your peace becomes rare, and anything rare becomes valuable. Now, even if she reaches out, you no longer react from the same space. You're not playing defense or offense anymore. You're simply observing, because your silence has taught you the greatest lesson of all, that power doesn't come from control, but from self-control. The man who reaches this stage doesn't chase or retreat. He simply exists in balance. His words are fewer, his emotions steadier, his boundaries stronger. And ironically, it's that stillness that now draws her closer, because while most men talk about confidence, you became the embodiment of it, not by force, but by peace. That's when she finally sees what you